Hi everyone, welcome to the Solutions to Reduce Energy Insecurity, Building a Better Systems webinar. We will begin shortly, just giving people a few moments to join us. All right, it seems like we've leveled off for the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off, and people, I'm sure, will continue to join, but we'll send out everything. So welcome everyone again to the Solutions to Reduce Energy Insecurity, Building a Better Systems webinar. My name is Jalen Jacobs, and I'm a program associate at SIA. I'm really excited to be here to help facilitate our final installment of SIA's Energy Insecurity webinar series, hosted by Lily here. Thank you, Lily. A couple of housekeeping notes as folks are still joining. Please note this webinar is being recorded. If you have any questions during it, please submit those in the Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom. And then following this webinar, we will be sending out the recording, the slides, and any linked resources that come up in the chat. So don't fret. And there will be a short survey immediately following the webinar, and we would really appreciate your feedback if you could take a couple moments to answer those questions. Before we hop into today's discussion, I wanted to provide a bit of context on the work that SIA does in the Southeast. SIA promotes efficient energy as a catalyst for economic growth, workforce development, and energy security across 11 Southeastern states and 5 island territories. You can see our values and mission there. And we provide research, consultation, and education, stakeholder facilitation, and financial services, as well as program management. And we do so with a range of stakeholders all across the Southeast and in different areas of the energy sector. This fall, thanks Lily, this fall, the Southeast Energy Summit will be held again in Atlanta, this time at the Lowe's Hotel in Midtown. We would love to have you join us October 25th through 27th to realize a healthier, more efficient, and prosperous Southeast. You can register at that link on the screen, or I'll drop it in the chat in a few moments. And now I'll turn things over to my colleague, Lily. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Jalen. Good afternoon, and welcome to Solutions to Reduce Energy Insecurity, Building a Better System. Thank you to all of those joining us today. My name is Lily Smith, and I serve as one of SIA's program associates. I'm joined today by my colleague, Jalen Jacobs, as well as our special guests for today, Nekesha Whitaker and Thaler from the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation, or AVLF, and Bryan Cordell from the Sustainability Institute. SIA inherited the Southeast Energy Insecurity Stakeholder Initiative from the Nicholas Institute at Duke University in 2022. In response, SIA has begun work on our Southeast Energy Insecurity project to implement the recommendations that were outlined by Duke. 2 of those initiatives have included the formation of our SEEP Leadership Forum and the development of this webinar series today. Members of our Leadership Forum, or our SEEP Forum, include original contributors to the development of those Duke recommendations. As part of their work, 2 grants were selected and awarded funding for project work which aligns with those stakeholder recommendations and its initiatives to reduce energy insecurity. And with that, we would like to take a moment to recognize and thank Bryan Cordell and the Sustainability Institute, an awardee of this prize, for their progress towards reducing the pre-weatherization gap and identifying health and safety challenges which prevent families from accessing energy efficiency and energy assistance in 4 BIPOC, low-income, and underserved counties in North Charleston, South Carolina. We'll drop a couple of links in the chat so you can read more about this. Today specifically, we're talking about the systemic change set of recommendations, which includes recommendations such as developing a regional coordinating committee, identifying health and safety challenges which prevent access to energy assistance or weatherization, increasing community engagement and reducing barriers to representation, and creating workforce development. Excellent. And now I have the pleasure of introducing today's speakers. Starting off with Nekesha Whitaker, a native of California, relocated to Atlanta in 2009 to pursue a BA degree from Clark Atlanta University. While enrolled at CAU, she took a keen interest in community service and volunteer activities. After obtaining her Master's of Social Work from Georgia State University, she developed a strong passion for nonprofits, community organization, and philanthropy. She has over 7 years of experience serving individuals and families at risk of homelessness and/or experiencing homelessness in Atlanta. In 2017, Nekesha began serving as a community advocate with Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation. After witnessing multiple families struggle to pay high utility bills and/or receive eviction notices due to disconnected utilities, Nekesha took an interest in climate and energy justice work and began collaborating with her AVLF colleagues and partners to implement energy justice into the housing justice work that AVLF provides. Thaler is the managing attorney for AVLF's Saturday Lawyer Program, where he helps low-income tenants in the Atlanta area find free legal help. Prior to joining AVLF in 2014, he worked at the Georgia Legal Services Program, representing rural Georgians living in poverty. Part of my favorite bio. In his spare time, Cole helps run an animal rescue called Pause Between Homes that provides temporary foster homes to the pets of people who have been evicted. Cole attended Northeastern University School of Law and Williams College. If you have any pets on the line, Cole, we encourage you to hold them up. On that note, I have the pleasure of turning the mic over to AVLF.
Unfortunately, I'm in the office and did not bring any pets with me today, so sorry about that. My house is full of them now. Well, hi everybody. Thank you for joining us. Nekesha and I are going to talk to you about AVLF's work and the intersection or connection with energy justice. Next slide. So just a quick overview of our agenda. We'll tell you about us and our clients, talk to you about some of the energy justice or really health justice initiatives, and just a quick passing reference to funding. Neither of us are on the development team, but in case folks are interested to know who is helping fund this work that we do, we'll mention some of those funders. We'll talk to you about the mold inspections that our team coordinates, and then talk about our partnership with SIA and a company called SK Collaborative to do energy audits. And then we'll end with some resources for clients that we share and wrap up. So just quickly about us, we are a nonprofit legal organization. We've been around for 44 years now, 1979, and we provide free legal help to low-income tenants in 2 counties, Fulton County, which is mostly where the city of Atlanta sits, and Clayton County, which is a high poverty county next door here in Georgia. And I'm an attorney, Nekesha is a community advocate and social worker. We have other attorneys on staff, but really our model is to work with attorneys in private practice in the city of Atlanta and the whole metro area, and really try to get them to represent the tenants that we serve. So there's 20,000 plus attorneys in private practice in the Atlanta area. And our goal and our mission is to recruit and train and support as many of those attorneys as we can to represent tenants who are dealing with legal problems with their landlords. And by far the largest, the most common type of case that we get or call that we get is from tenants whose landlords have not made repairs. So it is the law in Georgia that that landlords are required to keep their rental property in good repair. That is a bedrock tenant right in the state of Georgia. And yet what we find is that many landlords, particularly who rent to low-income tenants, have no interest in following that law and will ignore it and let the property fall into disrepair unless and until an attorney shows up and enforces the law by contacting them and sometimes suing them. So this is just a little excerpt from a victory that we had, a tenant who was living in absolute squalor because her landlord refused to make any repairs. We found a volunteer attorney at a law firm to represent her. That attorney filed a lawsuit and won about $5,000 for this tenant based on just the terrible conditions that she was in, including loose wiring, mold, rodents, and other problems. So sorry for the gross pictures. Our presentations usually gross people out, but these are the pictures that our clients share with us, just showing the horrible conditions that they live in. Mold is a huge problem. As folks know, here in the South, this humid weather that we have, a little bit of moisture or leak or flood will quickly turn into mold. People living with rodent infestations, ceilings caving in, and all kinds of utility problems. Nekesha, do you want to jump in?
Yes. So on this next photo, I don't know, it's the picture is kind of blurry. But this is an example letter of a notice that a landlord sent to a tenant, letting them know that their lease was going to be terminated due to their utilities being disconnected. So in the state of Georgia, income-based and Section 8 voucher renters are required to have their utilities connected unless that is a violation of their lease and a term, and they can be evicted on grounds for that. And so unfortunately, we have several of our tenants who are income-based renters are in properties that are not well kept, and the landlords refuse to make repairs. And so we had one apartment complex that we worked with. It was over 300 units where the majority of the tenants had high utility bills. And so next to that letter is an example of a bill where this client's bill was $297. This is an apartment unit. It probably was a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. And the bill was $297 the previous month. And then the next month, the bill was, I got to zoom in so I could see 300, I believe that says $330 the next month. And so we were just experiencing multiple clients coming back each month with these high utility bills. You could go to the next slide.
Yeah, and I'll just add just on that previous point, most of our clients are employed, but minimum wage in Georgia is still $7.25 an hour. And so a $200 or $300 utility bill is just, it might as well be 2 or 3 million as far as our clients' ability to pay. And sometimes those utility bills get up into the thousands or even tens of thousands. So major problem for our clients. Just some of our funders, just to give them a shout out, and it's really our development team who gets all the credit for this. We have funding from the Kresge Foundation in their Housing and Health Initiative. Kaiser Permanente is a longtime supporter of our work. They have provided us with funds over the years that we use to provide supplies to our clients while their attorneys are working on holding the landlord accountable. We are able to run to Home Depot and provide them with some Band-Aid supplies that make the living conditions a little bit better. Nekesha is going to talk about that more in a bit. But things like fans or even air conditioners, dehumidifiers, mouse traps, roach bait, things like that, we're able to provide while the volunteer attorney is doing their work. And our newest partnership is with CareSource, which is a Medicaid HMO. They have provided us some funding that we have used to create a new position called a community legal health worker, which we think we're pretty excited about. We think it's innovative, somebody whose job will be to really reach out to people who are experiencing these poor conditions, whose health or children's health is suffering because of the conditions inside their home, and to connect them with legal support. And we really do see our work, our legal work, as public health work. Next slide.
So one thing that we've launched at ABLF is an energy justice initiative. We don't have a name for the program yet, so that's what we're calling it now. And so with this initiative, we're partnering with climate and energy justice organizations and advocates to collaborate as a team to identify and provide services to communities experiencing high utility bills, and also issues with mold and asthma are some of the other factors that we are covering. And so what we focus on with this initiative is the education piece. And so with the education pieces, we try to partner with organizations such as SIA and other and SK Collaborative, who can provide education on things like mold. How do you identify mold? What do you do if there is mold? Health, what you can do to protect your health if you are experiencing those issues. Even educating our clients on things like what kind of light bulb should you buy if your lights go out? You just don't go to Walmart and grab the first light bulb off of the shelf, because it may raise your energy costs, or it may affect how your electricity is running. Resources, we try to connect with resources that we can provide the clients with, and what falls under resources is some of the funding that we do get, as Cole mentioned before, is providing clients products to help. Weather stripping is one thing that we buy often for those clients who are experiencing issues with their windows not being properly sealed or their doors not being properly sealed. Also, resources such as some clients didn't know that you can go back to the utility company and advocate and say, hey, there is an issue with my water bill, there may be a leak in my apartment complex, and just having a water company come out and test to see, and then getting their water bill adjusted. So that is another resource that we do try to provide. And of course, the advocacy piece is where our attorneys step in and we provide those clients with a legal representation to get those repairs made. And the last piece is the research, just definitely housing and energy justice and climate justice work. I know that it's not a new collaboration, but it is definitely something that we can continue to advocate for in the state of Georgia. And so just providing the numbers and the research to show, hey, there are people being evicted over a high utility bill, or these are the number of cases that ABLF has served who are experiencing mold in the state of Georgia. So you go next slide.
So we really rely on our wonderful partners to do this work. And one of those partners is a mold testing company called Air Allergen and Mold Testing, which is owned by a wonderful human being who's been doing this work for many decades at this point, and really understands the link between housing conditions and health and legal rights. And so we have a partnership with that company where, and we use our funding to pay for mold inspections. They give us a slightly reduced rate because we send so many clients to them. But we make that referral. They then go out and do the mold inspection in our clients' homes and produce a report, which is quite lengthy. This is just one little excerpt from the report. They summarize their findings in this handy chart. And what we do is provide the mold report, the mold inspection report, to the volunteer attorney, because it turns out so many of these landlords will just deny that there is really any kind of problem in the rental housing, but very often will deny that there is mold, even though there's been leaks, there's been floods, there's water bills, in the hundreds or thousands of dollars, and black stuff all over the walls, like we showed you in the pictures. But the landlords will say, well, it's dirt, or your client needs to take showers that are less hot. Yes, somebody did actually say that. Or the kids are getting stuff on the walls. And then we come back with this professional mold report saying, actually, we have science on our side, looking, and I don't know if you can read the number, but hundreds of times over the guidelines of levels of toxic mold. And if the case ends up in a courtroom, if the attorney does end up having to sue that landlord, the mold inspector will come to court and be an expert witness, testify about their inspection and what this report means, what the results were. And so that we have found to be extremely effective in getting justice. Next slide. And our other wonderful partnership relevant to this webinar is with SIA. And this is an energy audit partnership that we call Room to Breathe, which is also the name of this presentation. But we love a pun. So that's what we call this partnership. And what it is when we flag an intake from a client who has these high utility bills, our system notifies us, our case management software will flag that for us. And then we reach out, or Nekesha or her team reaches out to that tenant, to that client, with a whole set of questions. And this is just one excerpt from a longer questionnaire, but we need to gather some basic information about the home, about what the problems are, what we think the problems are, and flag those. And then once we gather that information, we send it over to SIA and SK Collaborative, which actually goes out to the tenant's home and performs a top to bottom exterior and interior inspection, looking for what the potential causes of these problems are. And then go ahead to the next slide. And then they also produce a report, like the mold inspection company, that assesses what they found. And actually keep going to the next one. The other direction. There we go. Yeah, so, and I'm not going to try to explain what all the testing that they do is. Probably everyone else on this webinar understands better than I do what this picture even shows, but what I can tell you is that it identifies the problems. So they go out with their equipment and do their testing and test for leakage and all kinds of things that I don't really understand, but they come back with a report that says, these are the problems. Sometimes it says, we didn't find that many problems, and that's useful information too. But when they do see problems, they spell it out in the report, and we provide that to the volunteer attorney and say, look, like, this is why these bills are so high. This is why this family is getting sick, why the kids are having these asthma attacks. We're putting tools in the hands of the attorneys to say, all of these things fall under the umbrella of what a landlord is supposed to address. They can't just look the other way, or they can, but we're going to hold them accountable. Next slide. Yeah, and again, just another excerpt from the report showing problems that were found in this particular tenant's home.
And so this is just an example of what I had touched on earlier. When we do when our system does flag us for those clients who are experiencing high utility bills. So in addition to completing that energy audit, we also try and provide additional resources to help those clients. And so, like I mentioned, just assisting them with reporting a problem to the utility company to get their bill reduced. We also, or adjusted. And then also I provide a list of utility assistance organizations to help some of those clients pay down some of those balances if we don't have the funding at the time to assist with that. We also, if there are landlords who are willing to work with us, because sometimes there are some good homeowners who are just renting out a property they may inherited from a family member who passed on, and they just don't have the capacity or the resources to make proper repairs. That I try to keep an ear out for different organizations who do provide type of funding, or the city of Atlanta, they usually have initiatives. So one of the ones I recently found out about was the Solar and Energy Loan Fund, and I believe they were on a previous webinar with you all too. And so that is another resource that I try to provide to the clients, because sometimes the clients are like, well, my landlord is a good person, I don't want to sue him, he works well with me. And so that's something I just say, hey, well, maybe do you think he's interested in doing this program to help with, making the repairs. And I mentioned before, we also provide the health and safety products as well.
So that's basically it. I mean, we are absolutely still learning as we go here and trying to figure out how to assist our clients in the most holistic way that really recognizes what they're experiencing as not just legal problems, but also health problems. We have a whole other program that Nekesha works with that's in schools, recognizing housing problems as also causing educational consequences. So we're trying to really understand our work from multiple facets and bring resources to the table that can support them on lots of different dimensions. And to offer not just a stick in the form of we'll sue you, but a carrot, as Nekesha said, letting these landlords know that there are programs out there that can help you make these repairs to your home. If it is, too expensive for you to do, we can let you know about some lower cost resources that are out there, because, ideally, they don't want to get sued. They want to pursue the opportunities to make the property more inhabitable, which improves their investment and makes a better living, environment for their tenants and their families. So that is it. There's our contact information and our organization's website if you want to read more about the work that we do or get in touch. But yeah, just thank you for the opportunity to let us talk about our work.
Thank you so much, Cole and Nekesha, for that wonderful presentation. It really displays how intertwined energy efficiency, health and safety, justice, and housing are, and how complicated that area is. I'm sure that part of Bryan's presentation will hit upon similar elements. In the meantime, I will remind our attendees to drop any questions in the Q&A box, and our panelists will respond to them after this next presentation. As we segue, I have the pleasure of introducing Bryan Cordell. I'm gonna read his bio off for y'all real quick. Mr. Cordell serves as the Executive Director of the Sustainability Institute, a nationally recognized and award-winning nonprofit organization based in Charleston, South Carolina. Bryan has overseen a broad spectrum of community-based energy efficiency programs funded by federal, state, and local governments, utilities, and private foundations that have collectively impacted more than 1,000 homes. He has also facilitated numerous climate action and sustainability plans for both cities and private sector companies. He has advanced industry and training around building performance, urban sustainability planning, and nonprofit management. He is a frequent speaker at regional conferences and symposiums on issues of energy efficiency, green building, environmental sustainability, and nonprofit management. Bryan was also recognized with a 40 Under 40 award from the Charleston Regional Business Journal in 2009 and was honored with the Individual Leadership Award from USGBC South Carolina chapter in 2012. We are so excited to have you, Bryan. I'm going to go ahead and switch things over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. And I truly enjoyed learning about all the great work that AVLF does. It's really cool stuff. So glad to be on here with them. And I also just wanted to acknowledge from the beginning our long history of working with SIA on a wide range of programs around energy efficiency. So really proud to have them as a partner. So our work, my organization is the Sustainability Institute. And you can switch to the next slide. We're a nonprofit organization based in Charleston with a mission of advancing resilient, sustainable, and equitable communities while building the next generation of conservation leaders. And this is just a little view of the work that we do, and a lot of it focuses on home performance and energy efficiency. But we do some other sort of related things as well. So just to give you an idea of what the whole of the organization does, most of our home performance, weatherization, and repair work focuses on low income and energy insecure households. And our goals with that work are obviously to reduce utility bills, address health and safety. We'll talk in a minute about the pre-weatherization repairs that we do. There's a big focus of us on electrification of homes now. And then we also bring in the piece of skill building for families, and we'll talk about why that's so important to us. We also run some green building certification consultation programs. We have a certification program for commercial and multifamily buildings that has a little over 1 million square feet of buildings currently being certified. And we do a lot of work around climate action plans and sustainability investments for municipalities. And then the last piece, we have a division that does habitat restoration, green infrastructure work. And the vehicle that we use for that work is a AmeriCorps service learning program. So we have young people that join that and get trained and certified to do all kinds of restoration work up and down the coast of South Carolina. And I won't read through all of this, but this is just to say, like, from the start of our organization 20 years ago, we were very focused on building performance. And you can go back one slide. A lot of that has focused on training, building professionals, but also training and empowering families. We started one of the first Clean Energy Corps AmeriCorps programs back in 2009, which was the start of our weatherization work. And since then, have managed a number of green jobs, training programs, as well as, pretty large scale pilot programs for weatherizing homes. Some of those were utility led or funded, and some of them were foundation funded. And then in the past year, we've integrated critical home repair into our program model. Next slide. So, why we do this work? Well, we're based in Charleston. South Carolina is a hot, humid climate, very high HVAC use by households. That high air conditioning demand contributes to, high consumption. And many in our region are actually living without access to adequate cooling. I actually had a call this morning from a homeowner who, it was upper 90s last night here in Charleston, and didn't have access to air conditioning. And it's a pretty common problem that we have to deal with down here. So we've got hot and rising temperatures coupled with a older housing stock. And so, Charleston is known for its historic homes. Most homes were constructed pre-1980, or, when energy codes started coming out. A lot of the homes are historic. There was a energy demand study done back in 2009 that showed that there were about 30,000 homes in the Charleston metro area that are immediately in need of energy upgrades. So as older homes, we have super leaky buildings. That's my technical term for what's going on. The structures, when you have a home that's 30 years old or more, start to get leaky really, really fast. And so that's part of the source of the inefficiency. And then we have thousands of homes with critical repair needs. So, you can think of those as attic roof leaks, structural problems in the floors and the walls or the foundation, plumbing problems, the need for electrical upgrades. And then in general, when you have, homes that are 30 years old or more, you see outdated and inefficient systems. Here in Charleston County, we have 52% of homes were built prior to 1990. It's about 112,000 housing units, just to give you a sense of the scale of the problem. And you can switch. So of course that then translates into energy burden. Of course, the cost of energy for many of these families living in these older homes, particularly in our low-income communities, it's often their their largest household expense, and then threatens their ability to afford other critical expenses that they may have. And then, like many other places, we have continual utility rate increases that, increase that burden. More than 400,000 households in North and South Carolina live at 50% of the poverty line. And then, as many as 37% of those face energy burdens, and they face energy burdens of 37%, which is, so much higher than the affordable energy threshold. So, these are families that are really, really struggling to pay their energy costs. And many of the homes we serve, families, who are typically living in homes that are like 1,000 to 2,000 square feet, are paying, $300 to $500 a month in utility costs. So, another challenge is that there's just inadequate resources for help. There's no one-stop shop where you can, go if you're having high utility bills or even you need home repairs. So it's a very confusing marketplace, hard for people who just need help to navigate. And there's only 2 agencies that do weatherization, provide weatherization services in our Tri-County area. Us and 1 community action agency. That other community action agency is spread across 5 counties. So just, completely under-resourced and doesn't match the need that's out there. And the same goes for the home repair agencies that, often under-resourced and working in silos. Typically home repair organizations sort of specialize in their one thing. They're not looking at the house holistically, and they have these long waiting lists for help. So when we would go in and do weatherization, almost every home we went in needed some other type of repair that was often critical. We would refer that family out to one of these home repair agencies where they would sit on a waiting list for, more than a year. And so that's not a very sustainable model. Another challenge is just around trust. The home performance contractors as a whole, as an industry, are not trusted. And then, for lots of good reasons, there's low trust in our historically marginalized communities where we do a lot of our work.
I was gonna say, real quick, if it looks like it's shifting between, I think these slides might be on a timer, so I'll try and correct for that, but if you see that.
No worries.
Okay.
So, our solutions to those significant challenges that we face in our region are first that, establishing and maintaining trust is our first and highest priority. So our model is that we go in and do very intense community outreach and relationship building, that spans many years and through, churches, nonprofit partners, neighborhood associations, all kinds of different stakeholders. And our goal is to create a lifelong relationship with the client. So it's not just a home intervention that we're after. We really want to form a relationship with a homeowner, understand the full realm of their needs, help them with their home, but be there as an ongoing resource for them and their neighbors. We see ourselves, not as energy auditors or contractors, but as a homeowner advocate. We're in the house to serve the homeowner. That's our primary purpose. And then, part of trust is doing a really good job. So really high quality work and strong quality assurance. When we're managing other trades, other contractors, we spend a lot of time quality controlling their work. And then we also, see ourselves as a connector for homeowners to lots of other resources that they may need. Our model is performance-based. So since we started doing this in 2009, we decided to follow industry best practices and protocols. It's a really important part of our model. We do upfront, midstream, and post diagnostic testing, which includes things like the blower door, duct blaster, IR camera, combustion testing. Part of that is to understand the performance of the home, and part of it's to try to figure out what is the best investment and sort of payback on the improvements that we're making. But there's the other point in doing this work is around health and safety. And so health and safety is our highest priority. The last thing you want to be doing is sealing up a house if there's a carbon monoxide leak. So there's really important protocols that you have to follow around that. And then we work with subs and trade allies that truly understand, home performance and are partners to us. And once we are, have done our thing at the house, then we try to track energy savings long-term wherever possible so that we can really demonstrate our outcomes. So now we pair weatherization with critical home repair because of all the reasons that I mentioned before, and really try to think holistically when we enter a house. We don't want to leave problems, or opportunities on the table. So we address the pre-weatherization repairs, and you can kind of think of those as anything that might prevent a weatherization from happening. So if you have a leak in your attic, you're not going to insulate the attic until the roof leak is fixed. We have advanced this one-stop shop model, but we also build a lot of collaborations and partnerships with other repair agencies, and do a lot of work aside them. And then, the last piece I'll mention is we place a really strong emphasis on homeowner education and skill building. Every client for weatherization attends a community workshop where we teach them all about the behavioral things that they can do in their homes and other low and no cost actions that they can take. We provide them with energy kits and other resources. And that's really all about empowering families and then making sure that there's this transfer of skills and knowledge, across generations in that home and in those communities. And, research on these types of programs nationally has really shown that the retrofit programs that perform best or have the best outcomes, really have this as a strong component of their program. And so, these are some of our recommendations. You saw this on the SIA slide as well. For us, looking for opportunities to leverage resources is really important. There are other organizations that we attach them and their services to our jobs because they offer something that's maybe slightly different, or allows us to not do something in the home in favor of spending more on, another category. So the leveraging of resources has been really important to our work. Cross-sector collaboration has been important, particularly in just understanding energy insecurity in these communities as a whole and all the different solutions that can be deployed to address it. Identifying the health and safety challenges that prevent access to energy assistance has been important because there's so many homes out there that just can't be weatherized until those things are addressed. It is very common in Charleston to see people heating their homes with their stoves. It's very, very common to see kitchen and bath vents vented into the attic instead of through the roof, causing moisture problems. We go in homes all the time that don't have smoke alarms and carbon monoxide detectors. Somewhere around 10% of the homes that we test for carbon monoxide fail that test. They're leaking at a level that's over the recommended EPA level. And so all those things are just critically important to be addressed. Expanding community engagement opportunities and reducing barriers to representation has been really, really important, particularly as our work then, translates into making policy. And so offering people who have, often been excluded from those opportunities, the opportunity to participate has been really important to us. And I would say, going from the household level to what's happening at the community level and really understanding community level data has informed our program model and what we do. You can go to the, can't remember if that's, okay. Yeah, this is just, I've got like 2 examples of, this is actually work that's happening right now. So this first one is a very kind lady in her early 80s that lives in a townhouse here in Charleston that was built in the 70s. And in her community, all of these apartments or these townhouses are sort of deteriorating at a pretty fast rate. When we went into her home, she had actually moved out because the indoor air quality and mold was so bad in the home that she couldn't stay in it. She had problems with her HVAC system, which had mold up in it. Her ductworks were covered in mold. Mold had gotten up into her attic. She had older inefficient systems. She had major duct leakage in her house. And so, these are the types of things that we do. There's got 2 pictures of us doing the upfront performance testing on it. But I use this example because, often this work is super complicated. One thing sort of leads to another, which leads to another. Even just all the mold testing that had to be done on this home was pretty complicated to understand and figure out, and then translate into what repairs needed to be done. So that's just to say this work is complicated in general. You can get to the next slide. And this is a gentleman, we're working on his house right now, 1938 historic home in Charleston. So these historic homes have, their own sets of issues and challenges just related to the historic nature and sort of what you can do and what you can't do in it. He actually did not have an HVAC system or HVAC ducts in his house. His wife recently had to move out of the house because it was simply too hot for her to live in it. She had some health issues that she was dealing with. So, step one for us was getting a new efficient HVAC system in there and ducts to just deliver cool air. But then we also did a pretty thorough weatherization package on his house, because being that it was 1938, it was super leaky. And so that's just another example of the types of situations that we deal with. And I think that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Bryan. Thank you both for these insightful presentations. At this point, we'll move into Q&A, which you can participate in via the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen for all of our attendees out there. I do see we have one. I can go ahead and read that off. This is from Jess Brosman. Bryan, do you work with renters as well as homeowners? How do you ensure that rent does not go up as a result of your weatherization work and repairs? I work with a group in Columbia, South Carolina, and we are hesitant to weatherize and install EE measures if tenants will be evicted because their rents go up.
So we do work with renters, a much smaller category of who we rent with. We try to get them into our educational workshops, and there's, from our perspective, a whole series of things that renters can do in their homes that, don't rise to the level of changing the structure of the house, but do result in immediate energy savings. And so we advocate for renters to do all of those things. And then we, where possible, try to get involved in conversations between renters and homeowners, because when a homeowner will allow us to come in and do an energy audit and make recommendations and potentially make those improvements. And, obviously that's a important opportunity. So we get engaged in those conversations. We don't have a whole program around just serving renters. That's kind of, how we intervene in those situations.
This is a question for all three of our panelists today, from Adora. Bryan and the AVLF team, what are your recommendations for building systemic change?
I mean, it's a great question. And I mean, with respect to the previous question, that's an issue here in Georgia and Atlanta too, right? I mean, if we push the landlords through any number of means to improve the conditions of the property, there absolutely is a risk that they would turn around and raise the rent. I mean, they would have to finish out the lease with the current tenant, and would be locked into whatever rent amount is in that lease. But when it comes time to renew the lease, they absolutely could raise the rent. And the reality is we're seeing that anyway. I mean, we're seeing rents are just astronomical. They've spiked over the last few years in Atlanta and continue to rise. And there really does need to be systemic change. There's no rent control anywhere in the state of Georgia. The state legislature has tied the hands of municipalities that would enact rent control measures. So there does need to be systemic change on a number of levels, legislatively and beyond. And, you know, no, we can't do this alone, right? We have to work and do work with our partners who are in the legislature and in the streets and doing grassroots work and doing the protests and letter writing campaigns and lobbying, and work in City Hall, to make the changes that we need. We're all just chipping away at our little pieces. So, you know, how do you make collective change in a word, or how do you make systemic change in a word? I think it's collectively, but you know, that's the long game.
I would just like to add one thing to that, which is around this integration of home repairs, you know, making systematic changes, making changes across sort of like the system of how these things are typically delivered in communities. And one of the really smart things that Charleston County did here in South Carolina is with their critical home repair program, they had a bunch of funding come in through ARPA that was dedicated to home repair. And they made a decision that they would attach a energy audit and weatherization package to every home that got repaired through the program. And I've never seen a local government do that before, sort of set that standard. And so our agency became the ones that worked alongside all the other home repair programs to make sure that we weren't just making home repairs, but, you know, every home is either, you know, brought up to code or gets a weatherization package. And so I thought that was pretty cool and something that can potentially be replicated in other places.
Nekesha, did you want to add anything, or should I ask any questions?
Yeah, just piggybacking off of what Cole said, it's really that advocacy and that grassroots work really drives that change. Because once we start organizing, once we start getting tenants and homeowners to organize, then those issues get brought up to the people who hold the power to make the changes. Because Atlanta is definitely, they have just even with affordable housing, is finally there's changes happening. The mayor is paying attention. There's systems being put in place, and that's just based off of the grassroots work that was done. We still have a long way to go though, but at least it has their attention now.
Okay, we've got a question from Eddie Moore. Are you leveraging the utility funds? If not, would it be worth it? When you said the work with mold was complicated, it made me think the utility programs are not set up to deal with complicated non-energy issues.
I'm not sure if that was directed at me, but I'm happy to take a stab at it.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, so we leverage program opportunities wherever we can. We don't use their audits if they offer those because we do that and feel like ours are pretty sophisticated. But wherever there are other program opportunities or, you know, discounts on products, you know, we try to integrate those offerings and make sure that our clients take advantage of them. Eddie is absolutely right. Utilities typically don't understand the complexity as it relates to how other repairs, needed repairs sort of fold into the weatherization stuff. And so, you know, we have to work through that. But certainly, you know, a big part of what we're doing is leveraging all the resources that are out there, including what the utilities are offering.
Thank you, Bryan. I'll read off this one question, and unless any others come in, I'll shift it over to Jalen to close us out. This one comes from Amy. How can you use volunteers for helping with repairs? I know a lot of young adults that would love to build skills doing this type of work and could be trained and then help train the tenants and homeowners in turn. Does this have liability concerns? It sounds like an AmeriCorps question, perhaps, Bryan.
Yes, so our current model does not utilize volunteers, but we have a long history of doing that. So for 9 years, our AmeriCorps program did weatherization work. So we had a licensed contractor, certified energy auditor that was going in and managing the construction, but our AmeriCorps members were involved in all of the testing. And so they got trained and certified to do that work. And then they would do like the air sealing and insulation components. And so I'm a huge fan of that type of workforce training program, particularly as it pairs with service learning in the community. Part of the struggle in South Carolina has been that the energy efficiency job marketplace is not very robust. And so we were having a really hard time plugging our trained and certified people into jobs that were available. So that was maybe the biggest challenge that we've had around that.
Cole or Nekesha, are there any opportunities for young folks in y'all's organization or field that you're aware of?
Well, we work with lots and lots of volunteers, but really mainly in the legal field, attorneys, paralegals, and law students. Since we're not actually the ones out there making repairs, we don't use volunteers on that level, but we try to think pretty creatively about how to bring in volunteer advocates.
And maybe for the dog shelter, right? Bring it back to that.
Always.
And
Right,
I'll just add.
Go ahead, Bryan.
I was going to just say, and I'll add for us, so our AmeriCorps members still get very involved in this work, and they teach all of our energy conservation workshops that we do in the community. We do a lot of community surveying work to try to understand what repair needs and weatherization needs are in the community. They administer all those surveys. They go in and do like the light weatherization items often in our homes, whether it's replacing LED light bulbs or doing a little bit of the air sealing work. But it's really like the deeper retrofit stuff that we're managing through our construction manager. And I think that sort of goes to the how do you handle liability? There's not a whole lot of liability involved, and when your AmeriCorps members are going in and doing those sort of lighter things.
You can visit the Sustainability Institute's website, and you can see their long history of AmeriCorps folks that they've had working for them. But I can go ahead and shift it over to Jalen to close us out.
Yeah, thank you all so much. And please join me in thanking our panelists, Nekesha Whitaker, Cole Thaler, and Bryan Cordell. It was amazing to hear from all of you. I learned so much myself, and I can't wait to keep digging in. Additionally, thank you all to the folks who joined us today and who have engaged in solutions to address and reduce energy insecurity in your work and in your communities. We thank you. If you would like to share your experiences, make connections, or remain engaged with SIA's energy insecurity work, we would encourage you to email us or sign up for our newsletter. I just dropped a link in the chat a minute ago. And again, following today's webinar, we would really appreciate your feedback by filling out the short survey that's going to pop up when the webinar closes. Please note that you will be receiving a recording link, the slides, and all of the links dropped in the chat shortly after the webinar ends. So thank you all again for joining us, and thank you to our panelists one last time. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.